that are almost beyond salvageable, and it just doesn't make financial sense to fix them, even no matter how cheap you get it.
Welcome to building wealth through real estate. If you invest or desire to invest in real estate, then this show is exactly what you need. And here's why. We all know that the number one thing that you should be doing as an investor is networking. Your network equals your net worth. But how can you use this to your advantage? Well, firstly, take notes. Listen to what the guests have to say. If you're a new investor, you can learn from the mistakes that they've made, the experiences that they've gone through, and learn how they think. If you're an experienced investor, you could see strategies that they may be implementing that you haven't thought of using yourself. Now, secondly, you may have questions, and if you do, great. Put them in the comment section down below, and this way we can be sure to get those questions answered for you. And thirdly, there's a ton of information out there, but I found that most of it is relevant to the US, and it's hard to try and take out and extract and see what's relevant to your area. So all of the guests that I'll be interviewing are Canadian investors. So if you invest in Canada, if you're interested in investing in Canada, then this show is exactly what you need. Joining us today is Matthew Bordian. Matt, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and your journey to this point?
Yeah, so Matthew Bordian, based in Edmonton, Alberta. Journey into real estate, kind of a convoluted way. Started years ago in once I graduated college, doing basically real estate due diligence reports for people buying and selling real estate, refinancing, or just managing their real estate portfolio. Basically, was an inspector for commercial properties, so did a number of things within real estate. Nothing of actually my own back then, but was involved with real estate transactions and purchasing and selling, and various different reports are required in the commercial realm of real estate. Fast forward now to 2022, as when we sort of finally got in it ourselves. Sort of followed and always wanted to purchase and always wanted to get involved in real estate, but never quite made that jump. And then in July of this year, we jumped in and purchased our first property for a flip, and then got on our second property for a flip. And those are both on the market or going to be on the market. So that's sort of our my journey into real estate, and sort of sidebars in that. Also involved in the home inspection process of it too. So, like I say to a lot of people, I was just getting frustrated seeing everyone else buying properties and getting into real estate, and if they can do it, why can't I? Like I'm here doing their home inspections and tell them if it's a good or bad property, or what's wrong with the property before they buy it, and sort of said it's about time I get into it myself too. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, just being on the sidelines watching everyone take it action there, and it's amazing how the momentum just builds up, right? Like, not jumping into your first one and then jumping into your second one, like basically right after. Like it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, well, and it's been a big learning process too, because we jumped in sort of at the tail end of the hot market. And when interest rates were almost at their low point, and the whole process of us doing our flips, interest rates have gone up every single month, it seems. So we're it's definitely a learning process, and school of hard knocks, almost sort of seeing these interest rates climb back to where it's average, but right now it feels like it's a really high interest rate, so it just kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one downside of it all. But a lot of lessons learned. And I mean, you came into all of this with experience as an inspector, but of course, there's still a lot that you can learn as an investor, right? I think every deal brings its lessons learned. But before we get into the inspection side of real estate, could we touch on what your current real estate investing strategy is that you're pursuing and your goals for the year ahead? Now, I know you said you have 2 flips on the go. Is that sort of the strategy you're going to pursue going forward for the year?
That's sort of our idea right now. We'll sort of see how the market goes. We've had one of our properties in Calgary. It's been on the market for about a month and a half now. Just tough timing with Christmas. It was just listed before Christmas, and so just kind of a tough time to list. But it's in a really nice area of Calgary. So sort of hoping, come January, February here, sort of the end of the month, that it will make some moves and it will be sold. But yeah, that's sort of our general strategies, the fix and flip, and then in turn using some of that capital from our flips to BRRRR rental properties, and slowly acquire rental properties from the money we're making on our flips going forward. So our goals are sort of trying to do about 6 a year for fix and flips, and then after the first year, use some of the cash to do 1 to 2 of those as BRRRRs to sort of hold them for long-term buy and holds for us.
I love that strategy. I love that, because fix and flipping is the active side of real estate, right? And then getting those burrs on the back end is sort of more of that long term wealth building on the side. I like that. It's a nice, good balance. And given the rate that that you've started and the momentum that you've built, I definitely think that is more than doable for you guys. But now going back to the inspection side of things, because I think a lot of people are interested in hearing what you have to say. You have a unique perspective as an investor and a home inspector. What are some of the most common problems that you find with regards to home inspections?
A lot of it is minor. People really get stressed out about, obviously, when they're selling their house for the home inspection process, they really get stressed out about it. And everyone that thinks an inspection sort of passes or it fails, there's no such thing as a failed inspection. There's no such thing as a passed inspection. All I'm doing, or any inspector is doing, is going through and providing information to make an educated decision on your purchase. Just like any other, some people are totally fine with a bunch of issues with the house because they're totally okay with fixing it. And they were going to understanding there was going to be issues. Some people want nothing. So one inspection can be totally awful and someone goes ahead and purchases it. And the other inspection can be almost squeaky clean, but someone walks away because of some small thing. But common issues are, just like water leaks under sinks. Because it's a common area people really don't look at. You get a little bit of water dripping, but again, that's technically that's pretty minor. Water is probably one of the most common ones, I would say. We find another one is sort of ventilation. It's one of those ones that people really don't think about until it's their time to replace the roof. They wonder why the roof didn't last as long as it should have. Just lack of ventilation in their attic for their shingles, but that's sort of just one thing that people aren't educated on, and it's one of those things that plays over the long life of your roof. So it doesn't show, it's not an acute issue, it's more of a long-term issue that sort of pokes its head up. But yeah, like those are probably a couple of the common ones. Every inspection has something that comes up. But again, like I said, it really depends on the purchaser's comfort level, what they're getting, and how the information is also communicated to them. Sometimes, inspectors just do an inspection, they hand over the report, and they allow the homeowner or the purchaser to sit down with the realtor and just go over it, and they're kind of reading it from an uneducated point of view, where I really like at the end of the inspection to sit down with the buyers and walk them through them and talk to them what it is, because it can look very intimidating when you read it on paper, because I'm just trying to communicate the best I can in non-technical terms on paper, but it can be very confusing to someone that has no idea what it is. They think the house is falling apart, but so that's what we like to do, is sit down and go through those inspections. So like some of those common things that I think is common as an inspector might not seem so common to the purchaser. So that's something I like to do, is just sort of go through those inspections and break it down to something simple, because you can get a 50-page report that looks like everything is wrong with their house, and it just, some of them are just small maintenance items that are easily fixed and easily taken care of, and some people don't even worry about them because it doesn't affect the functioning of their house. It's very just minor. But again, it just I find them. I try to treat the inspection as an education, because some people it's a long-term investment. And they're staying there for years, and you just want to let them know right from the get-go before they buy it what they're getting into.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I did prior to this interview was just look up some frequently asked questions when it comes to home inspections. And one common one that I saw was like, can you fail a home inspection? Kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, that's probably people who are uneducated on the process. That's probably their thought about it. But you're absolutely right. It's more just getting a better understanding on the condition of the house and what needs to be looked at. And there's no pass or fail, and there's no bad home as long as, well, you would tell me this. There may be, I don't know. As long as you're aware of all the problems and you're willing to take on that scope of work that needs to be done, really. Another thing I know is that even if the home is brand new, there tends to still be problems that you can find, right? As an inspector.
Totally. And that's someone, it's some people think they're getting, they are getting a new home warranty with a lot of new homes, but the new home warranty and a home inspection are I shouldn't say they're totally separate, but they're very independent. The scope of a new home warranty is set out by the scope of the warranty, like what items are allowed to be there, and there's some room for wiggle in there of what is acceptable under the new home warranty. There's acceptable for some cracks in the drywall, or there's a level for it's not quite perfection, but it doesn't cover everything. And some of the items are longer term, some of them are shorter term. But yeah, the home inspection is they just cover two different separate things. So yeah, it's something that I really like, and we really encourage agents to recommend to the purchasers to get a new home inspection. We found, for instance, heat vents in rooms that are just not connected. There's no heat coming out of them, so that room could be cold, and you're thinking this is a brand new house. It got the inspection from the city. Well, the city doesn't do I don't want to bash the city, but like they're not doing a thorough. They're trusting in the trades on a lot of things that they did a qualified work, being a qualified tradesperson. They're checking some of the base things for sure, right? They're doing their inspection, but it's not as thorough as a home inspection. Like grateful you want the city inspection, the city sign-offs with your permits for sure, but they're not necessarily going and spending hours in the house doing a full thorough inspection. So having that home inspection at the end of it for an all-encompassing inspection really helps. And especially in Alberta here and BC, some other provinces, the regulations quite aren't there. In Alberta and BC, we actually have a regulation set out by the province of what is supposed to be and what needs to be covered by a home inspection, what is allowed to be looked at, what's not, what they're not allowed to do. But elsewhere in Canada, it's kind of like buyer beware, and asking and making sure and asking your inspector what they're covering. So thankfully in Alberta and BC, they've set out regulations of what has to be covered, which makes it easy for buyers and sellers to understand what's being covered. But in other places, they're not so lucky that it's more have to find out from your inspector what is actually going to be covered during the inspection. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but yes, buying a new house, get a home inspection. There's always something with an inspection, and if you're laying out $400,000-$600,000 on some of these new houses, is a $550 to $600 inspection really going to break the bank if it's if you can find something, or if you do find something that can be fixed before you move in? So I just like looking at it that way, right? You're spending a lot of money elsewhere in the purchase. Make sure what you're purchasing is actually what you want it to be, and that you're not going to run into those issues when you move in, because it's much harder to get some of these issues fixed once you're living in it, versus getting the builder to fix it just before you move in. So yeah, for sure, get an inspection on a new house.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. And while you're doing these inspections, what are some red flags that you're looking out for?
It's sort of the same thing the whole time. I sort of have a routine that I go through when I do my inspection, just so that I don't miss things. But like as far as red flags, it's kind of hard to hide a lot of. People can hide things in the walls. So I guess that would be something, like newly painted rooms for no reason, new drywall in areas that shouldn't be drywall, new flooring in certain areas. Like, does it look like they're trying to hide something? And the big thing people try to hide is obviously leaking, like water intrusion into the house. So, that smell of moisture, or, kind of an odd reason of why was this room just finished in the basement and every other room in the house is still 10, 15 years old. So those would just, it's sort of put on your investigator hat of saying, why, if something, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, most times it is a duck. So just figuring out why. And that doesn't always mean that people could have just renovated the room. Okay, their kid moved out, they're trying to make it really neutral colors, or, or it was the house was, had tenants in it before and they just renovated because the tenants moved out and they want to sell it as a new. there's always, I'm not saying every reason that way it's a red flag, but just investigate a little farther of why it is. What does make it tough, and again, that's something that the province of Alberta set out, is it's a non-destructive inspection. So I can't go ripping out drywall to see what's behind the walls. I technically can't remove a cover plate on an electrical outlet. I can't take the two screws off, because all of a sudden if I break that outlet or something like that, like there's things that we can't do as inspectors. And obviously some buyers get frustrated of why we can't, but there's a reason for it, because there probably was an inspector in the past that destroyed someone's house, and that buyer never bought it. Now the seller is stuck with a house that was just inspected, it's been ripped apart, and now they have to do all these repairs to it. So we do have tools that can help us for this non-destructive inspections, as far as cameras and moisture meters and all those different non-destructive testing tools. But yeah, again, I guess, coming back around to what you asked, as far as red flags, it just, does something appear to be covered up? Sometimes do people put carpets over places? So maybe just, I remember my first house we bought, there was a carpet in the basement, but there was nothing else in the basement. And I wasn't a home inspector at that point. I was just doing commercial inspections. So just sort of a little different realm, but they put a carpet on the floor to cover some moisture issues that we're having. So, just some of those things of just, looking under the carpet, is it moldy under the carpet? Is there furniture where there typically isn't furniture? Just small things like that. But again, we can't, as inspectors, we can't, move and take furniture away and take things off. But you can ask the question, hey, it's kind of interesting that this is there, and just sort of pose those questions and sometimes ask those questions and try to figure out why it is the way it is. So.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like you say, it's non-invasive. You're not able to move things around. If they have a bookcase, covering a hole in the wall, or moved a couch set over a hole in the ground, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, there's a limit to it all. For people out there who maybe aren't as well versed when it comes to dealing with a home inspector, what sort of does a home inspection include? If you could just give us just a quick rundown on that.
It basically includes most components in a house, and if people are interested in what it does cover, you can go onto the province of Alberta. They do have the full outline of what is allowed to be inspected and what's not be. But like I said before, ask your inspector what they do, because even though there is a set rule of what the province does set out, some inspectors will they just have to outline in their agreement what they won't be doing for you. So some inspectors won't run water, but basically what it is, it covers everything from the foundation to the roof. It includes, electrical systems, your heating system, windows, doors, and plumbing, everything sort of in between. It doesn't cover low voltage systems, so things like telephone systems, internet-based systems. So we don't check internet jacks. It doesn't cover some accessories with the home, like, for instance, solar panels or alternative energy systems. But it is normally pretty inclusive of what's there. And if you ever have a question if it's not included, that should be covered in your agreement before you actually go ahead and engage with your inspector. You can get an idea of what they cover and what they won't cover, and even those systems, what they can and can't do, and how they'll inspect them. Because talking to some realtors, they know some inspectors won't go up on the roof and do a full inspection of the roof. They'll only do it from the ladder or do it from the ground. We've included using drones in our inspections just for some of that. Some roofs are a little high, and especially in our winters, it gets a little unsafe, and with how steep they are to get up there. So we do use drones where we can. I bring a broom with me to brush off snow off the roof if I can, to take a good look at the condition of the roof. We use thermal imaging cameras. We just have a number of tools that we do use to try to be fully inclusive. But again, yeah, just talk to your inspector, see what, but your realtor should give you 3 suggestions at least if you do ask for them. And just, ask some questions like you would with anybody else. What's covered, what's not covered, and what can you expect from them as far as a report, and even just assistance after you purchase the home. Can you give them a phone call if you do have a question about something? And that's something we're more than happy to do. just people. It could be someone's first time moving in. They don't know where certain switches work. They don't know how this works or that works. More than happy to answer them. But again, sort of summarizing the question, it basically covers everything in the house, and yeah, and as it should. So make sure all your appliances work. We add an extra sort of value add, something called a recall check. It's just sort of it's just sort of a quick report that we copy up the model number and serial number of all the appliances in the house, and you get a nice little report from a company called Recall Check. And if there's ever a recall, they just send you an email or a text message to let you know, to sort of follow up and make sure that your appliance isn't within that recall for devices. So yeah, all inspections should cover the same thing, but then there's always extras that different inspectors do cover as part of their services.
Great. I didn't know that about the recall. That's interesting. But now tell me, what if an inspection report reveals problems? Well, that's more than likely going to happen. Is it ever worth walking away from a deal, even if you can negotiate the purchase price down? Like, is there ever a scenario where, like, maybe the house just needs to be gutted? Maybe the house is in like a state that it's probably not. Do you ever come across that where it can't be worth purchasing the home, even if they drop the price?
Again, that's
I know you can't really recommend, but because it's just your job to sort of, but in your own personal opinion, though.
Yeah, find an investor.
Because that's what investors like, right? They like problems. Like, they want to buy a problem. And like my channel's like, it's just geared towards investors or people that want to invest.
Yeah.
Just as an investor, I guess it just comes down to the scope that they're willing to take on, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at the end of the day. Like, are you getting it for a price that you can still make money out if you have to sell it? Or are you just going to hold out as a rental, getting a really good deal, and you're going to be able to burr it and get more money out now because you're getting a lower purchase price, and you know how to fix it, or you know the proper people to bring in there for the right price to get it fixed. And that's what happens a lot of the time when you see these houses going for cheaper, is because the typical homeowner doesn't want them. Or a homeowner was going to buy it, they got a home inspection, revealed something that the current owner didn't know existed or was an issue. A lot of times foundation issues or plumbing issues with cast iron and stuff that's buried underground that you don't really see. And then investors end up picking them up. So, there obviously is some houses that, they've had fires or mold issues or floods that are almost beyond salvageable, and it just doesn't make financial sense to fix them, even no matter how cheap you get it. But I haven't run into something like that, because I think a lot of people that are buying those kind of properties already know it, and they, the home inspection wouldn't reveal them anything extra that they already don't know, because of the as-is condition it's in or what's been revealed to them, because they're just going to gut it anyways. So, yeah, that's yeah, yeah. So
no, that's exactly what I was thinking
myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't run into that. So.
Now, what tips do you have for investors looking to find a good inspector? Is it just, if they have a good investor-focused realtor that they're working with, find referrals that way? And even when they find a good inspector, are there specific questions that they should be asking? Like, as an inspector, I'm sure not all inspectors are created equally. As an investor looking for an inspector, does it differ between just the standard homeowner looking for an inspector, or is it one and the same?
No, I would say, just like finding a realtor, a mortgage broker, or anybody else, everyone in your power team should have a knowledge of what you're getting into, because a home inspector that only does inspections for home buyers, might identify and perceive it as towards the failed inspection, or it's something you shouldn't get into. Someone that's an investor-based home inspector understands the mentality of an investor and just can present the issues as solutions to them, or present some solutions to them, or what they are, and not quite as the major issues of a homeowner, or just not the same. Just the way you communicate them is just going to be a little bit different, just because you're understanding that they're going to be going to fix them, versus a homeowner might be looking at a lot more financial output that they weren't expecting, where an investor is knowing that they're going to be putting money into it. So I think that is something that is very important, because yeah, I guess how I do the walkthrough at the end is pretty similar, but again, there's it just it's different as far as how it's communicated to them, because the investor is just looking for the problems and what money they have to do to fix them. So most homeowners are seeing basically how much money are they going to have to spend? Are they is it too much, or is it or what? So it's just sometimes it's just easing the issues to home buyers a little softer. Investors, you sort of just hit them with it, and they just sort of want to know what it is.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. It's like the inspection process doesn't change, but it's understanding the mindset of the person you're dealing with, an investor, being able to speak their language as opposed to how you would just deliver it to the standard homeowner. So yeah, I 100% get that though. Now, as you've touched on this, since the inspection is non-invasive and you're not able to take the home apart to inspect it, would it be wise, or rather, it would be wise for investors to account for the unexpected problems popping up, right? In your experience, what are some issues that investors run into that could be missed by an inspection due to the limitations that you face when you inspect a property? Here's a quick tip for you listeners out there. As a real estate investor, there's two things that you can focus on that will bring everything else together. The first thing is networking. Go out there and network with other like-minded investors. Look in your area, see what events there are, and go and join them. If you're within the Edmonton area, by all means, find my contact info below. I'll hook you up with local events, and you can make sure that you go and attend as many as possible. Grow your network, grow your net worth. The second thing I'd say is your power team. You'll come to leverage them quite often. You rely on them to make investing easier for you. They have the expertise that you don't need to have. So I'd make sure that I focus on building a strong power team. If you are in the Edmonton region, you're looking for an investor-focused realtor, by all means, hit me up. I am licensed. I do have an investor list as well that I just send deals out to investors on my list. So if you are interested in being added to that as well, you can contact me below. I'll make sure to add you. Let's get back to it.
I say the biggest one is probably like your sewer drainage. That's sort of an added value, not an added value, an extra on top of a typical inspection. Is like doing your sewer cam inspections on a cast iron sewer system, or the various different materials that we've used in the past for our sewer systems. That would be probably the biggest issue that's not covered in the scope of a typical home inspection. But as far as an issue that's within the scope of a home inspection, it'd probably be foundation and moisture intrusion issues. Because if you have a finished basement, and say it's wintertime, we're doing the inspection, everything's frozen, the ground's frozen. There's not going to be most likely, there's not going to be any water coming through the foundation at that time during the inspection. Albeit fast forward to springtime, you're just getting ready to list it, and it just rained, or now the ground's thawing and the ground's more saturated, and all of a sudden the water's coming through the walls, and the cracks in the foundation. So that's probably one of the ones that, just given the time of year, it would really affect the results of the inspection too. I always say a rainy day is the best day for a home inspection. It sucks for the inspector to be out there when it's pouring rain, but as far as the person buying it, you're putting through the home through the most stress as far as water intrusion. And so that's probably, a nice rainy day. I know we can't schedule around weather, but a rainy day is probably, I would say, the best time to get a home inspection if you're purchasing for an investor or just as a home buyer. So
That's a great side tip though. Now speaking as an inspector, are there some things that sort of make it easier for you to do your job? I know, like in winter, of course, when there's snow on the roof, it makes it a lot difficult. But are there things within control of the seller or the buyer, anything that they could do to sort of make your job a little easier?
uh, the easiest thing for a seller is to get a pre-inspection done. So you can get your list of maybe what deficiencies you didn't realize you had in your house, before you go to sell it, so you can get it all fixed. So when you do get that inspection, the prospective buyers aren't finding anything on their inspection because you've taken the proactive nature to fix some of those things. Because how many of us look underneath our sinks in our bathrooms to see if there's a little drip of a leak? Most people aren't going to turn away from inspection because of that, but that is something that you could find. But other than that, I would say just make sure the house is clean. Everything is readily accessible. So, all the heat vents are accessible, the windows are accessible, getting to the attic, and all your utilities are on. The amount, I've run into a couple of vacant houses where the electricity's turned off because they haven't paid their bills. They've turned the natural gas off. They turn like things are turned off, and we can only do so much when all the utilities are turned off. So making sure um, your gas is on, your electricity is on, the water is on, and just making sure everything's easily accessible and get around. So try to do a nice clean. Don't have all the laundry all over the place. Make sure the appliances are easy to work and test. And we actually send out when we schedule inspection for our buyers, we send out a list to the selling realtor. Say, hey, you have an inspection scheduled on your house that you're selling. Here's a list of stuff that make it go easier, and that's set out automatically through our inspection scheduling software. And it's just exactly I went over there, make sure those things are on, make sure it's nice and clean, and make sure everything's easy to get to. Because some people have locks on hatches, they close certain doors because of their kids, they don't want to get in there. But you want to make sure that that's not preventing you from selling your house. So we try to, just from experience, we've sent those out to realtors to educate their buyers, and most realtors have been through inspections, they know this, and they've already educated their sellers on this. So yeah, that's probably the easiest thing. If you make it easier, there's just less questions for the prospective buyer. If the inspection comes back and says, couldn't test this, we couldn't test this, we couldn't test that, and couldn't run through, I think as a buyer, they'd be a little hesitant of why that couldn't be tested. And they're not getting their value for their inspection.
Yeah, exactly. And it's to the benefit of the buyer and the seller, right? The seller wants to get the home sold. So the less unknowns there are, the more comfortable the buyer can feel about purchasing the home. And then for you and the buyer and the realtor who would typically attend the inspection, it makes the process go a whole lot quicker and a whole lot smoother if everything's in order and readily available for you too, right?
Yeah, well, the last thing as inspectors, I don't want someone not to sell their house. I'm not trying to be the evil guy walking to their house and trying to prevent them from selling it. I want them to sell their house. Um, so make it easy on everybody. And I want you to sell your house. I'm not coming there to prevent you from selling it. That's not good for anybody. But I'm still gonna do my job and do my full due diligence to do the full report of what's required from me as an inspector.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to touch on is, um, now I know you had already mentioned this before, navigating through that report for a buyer, especially if they, either a new buyer or they haven't bought in a long time, maybe they're not as well versed, even a new investor perhaps. It can be, it's an extensive report. It can be a little overwhelming trying to read through all those pages. And I like the fact that you actually take the time to go through and explain it, so it makes it a whole lot easier for them. For any investors or any newer investors or any buyers who are on the other side of Canada and are not able to use your service, and maybe their inspector hasn't done a great job at explaining to them, do you have any tips for them, like navigating through this extensive report?
I'd hope their realtor would have some knowledge of looking through these reports. Um, we've adapted our reports to be user friendly and easy to navigate and not contain too much information that you don't need. No one wants a report with useless information that doesn't has no purpose for it, right? Including text to the fact of just to fill a report doesn't make any sense. We really tried to break it down of, if anyone's ever purchased a house, they get their question from their insurance company, what size is your panel? They have a bunch of questions the insurance company comes to, and the people I have no idea. So we've adapted our reports to include some of those things in there to make sure that they have that information. Again, what the part of the inspection is to provide you the information you need. So if they haven't had an inspector that's not walking them through there, I'd question the realtor why that inspector was suggested to them. But at the same time, hopefully your realtor has enough knowledge of going through those reports that they can walk them through with you. But I'd also just give your inspector a call and ask them to walk you through it. Because I think that's part of their services. They were there to educate you and walk you through, and I'm more than happy as inspector to walk my buyers through it a second time or a third time if they have any questions. Nowadays with all our communication devices, there's really no excuse to not get a hold of anybody. So a quick text message, a phone call, an email, whatever it is. All the reports are online. You can PDF them. Like there's multiple different ways to get them. We'll print them off if people don't have access to computers. We'll get the realtors to print them off. Like there's so many different ways to communicate that report to them, and to go through it with them. So
I like the fact that you're trying to cut out any fluff that doesn't need to be there. Because prior to getting licensed as a realtor, I worked as an insurance agent, and I help people. One of the things I did was help people insure their homes, and that's one of the things that they provide is the inspection report. And I've seen how extensive and how long they can be. So I like the fact that you try and keep it direct, give them exactly what they need, take any fluff out.
yeah, and just provide that summary section too, because people have it confusing to try to jump through to find that information they need. Well, we've just provided a nice summary because we know, 9 times out of 10 most people need that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now tell me, as an investor and inspector, I'd like to hear your take on running your renovation numbers. I know some people run them broad, like by the room breakdown, and others as like an itemized breakdown. How deep does your number crunching go?
So between doing commercial inspections, doing residential inspections, I also did project management for Alberta Health Services building, or doing renovations for healthcare facilities. So I sort of go back on that experience of running them using basically the sub trades and who's going to be doing them. So to make it simple and not go too deep into the project management of renovations, is basically you can just break it down into subcomponents of the building, and then just figure out who's going to be doing that for you, and getting a quote for them on doing that work. And that's a very easy aspect to do it, of just doing it room by room. And we used to call them room schedules. And you could just assign each one to each room, and then you could assign it to your trades and get a quote from your trades. So I think that's the easiest way I can explain it. But basically breaking breaking this large entity into its small subcomponents, and then figuring out who's going to be doing that work for that renovation for you, and then getting them to quote. And as you get more experience, you'll figure out and you'll know your prices for different products, and then you can just get some labor rates from your trades. But on a very simple aspect, break it down into subcomponents and just figure out who's going to be doing that work for you. And you don't know who's going to be doing it for you, ask your plumber, do you install flooring? No, that's a flooring guy. Sweet. Okay, then you go find a flooring guy, right? If you don't know it, you just ask the questions. And most, if they're good trades, they'll try to help you out, and they'll say, hey, do you guys, I was just getting a quote from a painting guy not too long ago. And he asked me, he says, hey, do you have a guy that's doing your baseboards and trim for you? I said, well, I'm never going to say no. Like, okay, sure, give me another trade. Like, give me someone else that can do baseboards and moldings for me. And he provided a quote or provided a contact, and I have a new contact to do other work for me. So a lot of good trades will help you out as well to get the process, and then we'll give you some good contacts of who they've maybe worked for to help you out. So that's sort of how I run my numbers. I know there's some people like to run a square foot cost pricing, but square foot cost pricing is really tough on renovations. It's a little easier on new builds because they're doing everything, but renovations, sometimes we have to adapt the floor a little bit. It's not level, we have to re-level it, or there's some framing that has to be done. It's really hard to run on a square foot basis. And the full thing, some things that are quantifiable, like surfaces of walls and floors and that kind of thing, we can run on a square foot basis. But electrical, or doing electrical work and that kind of thing, it's more, without getting too much into the estimation world, it's more based on unit quantities versus area.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think using your method, you'll sort of cut down the variation or the variance between your estimated cost and what it would actually come out to, because that's the goal, is to try and get it somewhat as accurate as possible. Because the bigger that variation, the bigger your shortfall, or the underestimate or overestimate can be. Now, of course, if you overestimate, great, works in your favor. But when it's the other way around, not so much, right? Because then it starts eating into your profit. So I like your take on that. You seem pretty organized when it comes to that side. And Not to my surprise, obviously an investor and an inspector. I figured, and given your further background in the commercial side, I figured you probably have a good answer. And each guest that I have on gives a unique perspective and their unique way of running things. So, thank you.
Yeah, there's no right way or wrong way, I guess, to do it. It's what works for everybody, and um, if you're making money doing it and doing it legitimately and safely, why not do it that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's sort of whatever you comfortable working with, right? Like I know some people that, like you say, would sort of just do it on a square footage basis, and then, sort of have it based on the level of the home itself. Like how much needs to be done, and sort of do it that way, and they're okay with that. And then other people that itemize each and every single thing, and that makes them feel comfortable in knowing that the numbers are accurate. Um, but that's the nice thing about having different investors on here is people listening out there can sort of see what resonates with them, test it out, and just have another tool in their arsenal to just help them take action going forward.
And I think just getting in and doing it too helps. Like my experience from doing that is from being in the process of going through and I was working from on the owner's representative side of things. So the working for AHS being the person receiving quotes from contractors and just seeing how they put theirs together. I sort of changed my methods, or not necessarily change it, but just adapt them based on seeing how other people do them. Right, just because the way you're doing it doesn't mean it's the right way all the time, and you might find more efficient way of somehow other people are doing it. So it's all just be willing to learn and just keeping your eyes open to be able to adapt and maybe find something that's more efficient.
I love that you mentioned that, Matt, because I find that especially when you're new into this, is you're trying to find the perfect way to do everything, right? The perfect way to do it before you take action. Let's find the perfect way to estimate the rehab cost before I go ahead and take action. And that just stops you from being able to take action. So if you can find a way that you're comfortable with, and then, like you say, adapt it over time, right? You're going to keep adapting it. You're going to keep refining it, and as you do your first deal, you learn more and you can adapt for the second deal. I love that you mentioned that, though. Are there benefits to using an inspector who is also an investor? Now, I sort of had this question pre-planned, but after speaking already, I sort of know what those are. And those are someone that's able to speak your language, who's able to deliver what they found in a manner that makes sense to you, and sort of, yeah, make that relationship would be a whole lot easier than just someone who's delivering to a first time home buyer, or speaking about things that you're not typically interested in because you're going to do a big renovation, so you're not really interested in the smaller things. They know what you're looking out for, essentially, right? Would those be, have I left anything out, would those be the benefits?
Well, exactly. Like I recently just did an inspection for another investor was buying a property for he's going to turn it into a rental or a short term rental. Really wasn't sure, but just basically knew that he was supposed to be removing most things in the house. Uh, so he didn't necessarily care if doors didn't close fully, or if there was no door stops behind a door, or if there was baseboards missing here or there, because he knew he was gutting most of the house. So we can adapt the inspection to fit your needs, so that we're not doing an inspection and costing you more money for things that you don't care about. We can reduce the scope and just agree to it before we do the inspection of what we are going to look at, what we aren't going to look at. Um, and I sort of tend to say it's like a condo inspection, but backwards. So, like a lot of people that are buying apartment condos, because a lot of the mechanical and exterior envelope of a condo is covered under the condo board under your condo fees. You only when we do a condo inspection, it's just basically from the paint inwards. So it's basically just what's in your unit, and everything else is covered under your reserve fund study for condo. We all sort of did a reverse of that. He didn't really necessarily care what was on the inside of his building because he was going to get rid of all of it. He wanted to know more what was on his outside of his building. So he wanted to know what his roof, he wanted to do his foundation, his windows, his exterior siding. And then we just took a quick look at his mechanical and his electrical and plumbing, because if he didn't have to upgrade those, he didn't want to. But yeah, we like an inspector that understands what investors do and what they need. We can adapt our services to that for you, so that we're giving you what you need and not just giving you a big, again, fluffy report with a bunch of stuff that you don't care about that you're going to be removing anyways. Just to save you time on your inspection, and just really focus on the key items that you want to take a look at, that you don't want to necessarily maybe change, or that you can maybe you can leave if there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. I get that. Um, as an inspector, though, you must have come across your, I don't know, your fair share of out of the norm inspections. Do you have any particular horror story that you can share with us?
Uh, I've had some roofs that I've almost fallen through.
Really?
Um, walking on some roofs, and then they're a little softer than expected, and you almost fall through them. Um, you're walking through people's homes, so sometimes it's not necessarily the home that's odd; it's the contents within the home that are kind of odd. Um, people's houses are kind of they're closed off that no one outside in the regular world gets to see how they live. Um, Sometimes the contents that we see within the into the house, you sort of have to just put your blinders on and just pass them and continue going.
Yeah.
Sort of it's sort of not safe for work content. Maybe I think they call it. So check out our Instagram and Facebook page. We tend to sort of post some of those kind of cool uh, or odd things that we find during our inspections. Um, Unfortunately, our Instagram and Facebook just got hacked, so we're sort
No
of
way.
we're reposting a lot of those pictures and videos and content that we did have on our new Facebook and Instagram page. But yeah, we kind of like to post some of those cool and funky things we find along while we're doing inspections. So, um, even things like having animals follow me around or swatting at me or doing funny things because I'm this random person walking through the house. Um, yeah, again, you'd have to ask my wife. She'd probably remember better than I do because it just the amount of inspections you do, a lot of it just rolls
Yeah.
over into the next one, and it's people that I just tell the stories to here once in a while that seem to commit them to memory easier than I do. But yeah, we try to sort of take pictures of them, post our Instagram as sort of a cool thing for other people to sort of take a look at it and enjoy sort of some of the oddities that we run into some of our inspections. So yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely for the listeners out there, I'll definitely leave your um all that contact info and your Instagram and Facebook handles in the description
sure,
below, so they can definitely go check that out.
yeah,
I'm interested now. You have my interest peak, so I'm gonna go give you a bit of a stalk there and
for
have a
sure.
look. Well, do you have one last piece of advice for our audience? Keeping in mind, of course, our audience are mainly investors.
Uh, we were in a competitive time in the spring market. People were trying to figure out a way to make their offers more competitive. Um, were people taking maybe some risks they weren't comfortable with by eliminating different conditions on their offers? Um, maybe you won't have a home inspection condition, um, but be prepared to deal with not having that home inspection condition. Talk to your inspector. There's some other ways we might be able to help you out without having a home inspection condition if you don't want to. But like I said earlier, is that $500, $600, depending on the size, of your inspection? Is it something that you're willing to part ways with and maybe inherit those risks that are much larger than that fee that inspection would have been? Um, and yes, then maybe might not be for people that have bought or sorry, have purchased hundreds of homes or multiple homes, that they sort of have an idea and they can financially weather those difficulties, or maybe hold on to the house that the next person might not buy because that's going to find out in the inspection. But um, yeah, just be prepared of of your decision and what you're going to make, and is waiving some of those conditions really worth it? Would you waive your financing condition on a property just to make um, and be responsible for holding out that house or losing that deposit or whatever it is? So just be prepared for the decisions you make, and find a good investor-based home inspector, and just have some discussions of some creative ways we can help you out if doing inspection is not possible.
Oh, I love that. That is great advice, and I am going to leave your company details as well, so people can reach out to you, get some one-on-one time with you, and maybe use you as the inspector. Now, just on a side note, investing, inspecting, all that aside, when you're not investing, how are you spending your time?
There's not much time outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, have two dogs and a wife. We're we're busy with them, keeping them busy. Um, but when I did have spare time, and I enjoy volunteering with the Scars Animal Rescue. Uh, I just sort of that's sort of how we got our second dog here during COVID, through volunteering with the Scars Animal Rescue, driving to some of the communities that the volunteer organization helps, picking up dogs for spay neuter return program. So basically, it's a program that they do. They go into these communities, and maybe some people that would never have thought of, or maybe can't afford to do a spay or neuter of their pet, go in there to try to help control the pet population in some of these communities, and also vet their dogs to get the proper vaccination so they don't come down with some of the sicknesses that they might get exposed to. So I really enjoyed doing that, and just volunteering with the animal rescue, just helping some of these underprivileged animals that can't help themselves, getting them to better homes, and just seeing, it really sort of fills that cup of, it's nothing fun. It doesn't. I don't gain anything financially from it.
Yeah.
They don't gain anything financially from it, but it's something I really enjoyed, and really sort of fills my cup when I do have spare time. And unfortunately, in the last year or so, I've been so busy with home inspections because there's been so many people buying and selling. Haven't really been able to dedicate as much time as I want to, but that's sort of a passion of mine, is volunteering with Scars Animal Rescue, based out of Athabasca, but we just a new facility they just acquired in Morinville, so a little closer to home now. But yeah, that's sort of, beyond spending time with my wife and our dogs, it's like to volunteer with Scars.
Okay, I tell you what though, maybe we can leave their information down in the description as well. And if anyone's listening out there and they wanna volunteer, donate, help out to the cause, maybe we can we'll leave that out there for you guys. Um, I like that. I love that, man. I think that that's a good way to live a wholesome life, is loving beyond just yourself. You know what I mean? Being able to give back. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely tough to sort of see some of the conditions some of these animals are living in, but
yeah.
it's definitely fulfilling to try to help them out, and they need more help than ever right now. COVID was not good to them. Animals reproduced at record numbers, I think, during COVID, unfortunately. So there's lots of help that is needed right now.
Yeah. Now, Matt, just going back to your services, what areas do you service, and what would be the best way for people to reach you if they want to contact you?
So yeah, quantum home inspections. We have inspectors all across Alberta. Basically, I'm in Edmonton. We have another inspector in Red Deer, and we have an inspector in Calgary. So we basically cover majority of Alberta. Unfortunately, no one in Grand Prairie or Fort McMurray or some of those northern Cold Lake communities, but we are willing to travel if need be. And then as first commercial clients, I've been all over North America for commercial clients. So commercial knows sort of no boundaries for inspections, but yeah, you can call or text. My number is 587-343-3656, or just on our website, Quantum Inspections. You can find us. We have a schedule here, schedule inspection button, and you can schedule it there. And like I already said, I'll send you our Instagram and Facebook handles, and you can take a look there and even contact us that way. So there's so many different ways now with all the different communication avenues that
Exactly.
whatever way you find it will find our way to myself or one of the other inspectors with Quantum Inspections that we can help you out. So yeah, if I can't help you in Edmonton, we have a guy in Red Deer and a guy in Calgary. So yeah, we can sort of cover all the bases.
I love it, Matt. Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation. Um, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners out there have as well. I tell you, with each guest that I have, there's always something unique, something different that I learn. I don't think your learning really ever stops. So I wanna thank you for taking the time out. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for bringing all this value. I'm sure our listeners out there appreciate it as well, man.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and this has been lots of fun. And yeah, I love talking real estate and love just talking construction and anything sort of in between. So yeah, this is a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning in to Building Wealth Through Real Estate. If you're interested in learning how you can become a proactive investor and decrease your renovation turnover time, then you definitely want to check out the episode where I interview Mitchell Viant. This is your host, Alray Noble, signing off.